other transaction?
Yeah, what do we call this other transaction authority? Like, I want to go home. It's 4:00.
Other than the FAR.
Other than the FAR. Well, that's the funny thing is there's others.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's federal lab agreements. There's partnership intermediary agreements. There's CRADAs. There's public-private partnerships. Those are all other transactions.
Other than other.
Yeah. So why does OTA get the name? Why are they the special child?
We are back with another Act for Dummies.
Yes.
And now we're going to talk about what you do after the CSO, and we're going to talk about OTs.
OTs, Old Testament.
I never know when to say OT or OTA.
Yeah.
Help me.
Some people say, I'm going to award an OTA.
That's not right.
Not so much. OTA is usually, the acronym means Other Transaction Authority. Most agencies have what's called procurement authority.
Okay.
Procurement authority allows them to enter into procurement contracts, and every procurement contract must use the Federal Acquisition Regulation.
Okay.
If you have procurement authority, you have to use the FAR. If you do any sort of transaction or contract outside of the Federal Acquisition Regulation where you're not following those rules, then you're either breaking the law or you have to show that you're using some other kind of authority. Other transaction authority.
It feels like they wanted to come up with several different other transactions, and they were like, let's just call them all other transactions.
Yeah, what do we call this other transaction authority? Like, I want to go home. It's 4:00.
Other than the FAR.
Other than the FAR.
Okay.
That's it, though. Other than the FAR, basically.
Yeah, so it's all encompassing.
Yeah, and it's funny.
The FAR or an OT, there's no other option.
Well, that's the funny thing is there's others.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's federal lab agreements. There's partnership intermediary agreements. There's CRADAs. There's public-private partnerships. Those are all other transactions.
Other than other.
Yeah. So why does OTA get the name? Why are they the special child?
Special.
They have the authority to enter into transactions that have the honor and privilege of not abiding by all of the rules and regulations of the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So it's all the rules about, well, if you post an RFP, it has to come out 30 days, or you have to do your synopsis, or you have to do blah, 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 blah. All that stuff just doesn't apply.
Is that how the FAR talks?
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's somewhere. I think that's part 13. It says blah, blah, blah. So it's, now, we can talk about this later, but the FAR carries a spirit of good faith and fair dealing. Mm-hmm. These are the unwritten laws that are just common sense.
Yeah.
There is inherent in human common sense as the right to own land,
Yeah.
the right to treat each other fairly,
Yeah.
is the right to treat companies fairly, the need to compete, the need to, and then statutory regulations too, like trying to promote small businesses. And so you want to do all that even when you're working outside the FAR, because those are statutes. Mm-hmm. You just don't have to do it exactly like the FAR says.
Okay.
Like you have, like the rule of two. Mm-hmm. For example, in the FAR with a small business.
Yeah.
So that's other transaction authority. And because you have to have that other authority written in statute, you've got to be aware as an agency of that particular authority that you have. So the DOD has different writing than NASA, for example. NASA has different writing than HHS. Actually, OT started with NASA.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the history because I know you love the history of OTs.
That's great, yeah. Space race, yeah. And they used that. It's the authority that NASA had is very broad. If you look at NASA's authorizing statute for other transactions, it's so broad. It's like one sentence. Like you're allowed to do it, basically, is what it says. Like you can do this.
Do cool things. Yeah. All right.
FAR, no problem.
Did that start during the Apollo program?
Yeah. Okay. Started during I think it started during the maybe start in 1960 something. So it could have been Mercury or Gemini as well.
I just asked that question because I wanted to hear you.
You want me to nerd out?
I wanted you to say Gemini.
Gemini,
not Gemini.
Not Gemini. Yeah, they call it Gemini. You know?
Yeah, I just think it's a cricket.
Yeah, Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
So I called it Gemini for the longest because that's Gemini.
That's the common
And then the more I
parlance.
studied like NASA culture,
Yeah.
the more those Texans from Houston,
Yeah.
they call Jiminy. Freedom 7's coming out of the Jiminy program. So I guess that's
All right.
anyway. So NASA, perhaps through OTs we have Tang and memory foam and the space pen and other cool things that were
Freeze-dried ice cream.
Yeah. And that's one of the main purposes of other transactions, actually. So for the research piece, there's a big objective, and the DoD has an OT for research as well. We'll talk about prototype and production. Those are other statutes. Mm-hmm. But the research OT has a big flavor of kind of dual use type technology. So something that, and there's some resource sharing involved in. Mm-hmm. So the industry puts their resources in, government puts their resources in, and they do this kind of joint venture. Mm-hmm. And there's military application, and then there's consumer application. Okay. Tang, well, for NASA, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have this, like, a lot of OTs are meant to have, it's my favorite part of government contracting is with the dollars that the taxpayers give to the government. As a taxpayer, I love this. With the dollars that the taxpayer gives to the government for the welfare and defense of our nation, that we have this consequential benefit to the American marketplace. And the way I think of it too is that if you can later down the line, you're in Christmas morning, you're opening presents with your grandkids, and they're opening up something that you originally funded as a DoD employee. You're like, yeah, it started as a DoD. That's cool. That's dual.
That is really
that's
cool.
Dual use. That's the internet, GPS.
Merry Christmas, your own Saturn rocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, enjoy your rifle, and that's one of the beautiful parts to me of America that's different from other governments. Just to be a proud patriot for a second, our market is incredibly capitalist market.
I love it.
And so for the government to work in this market, the government has to coexist with our Adam Smith. What is it? The nations, the hand, invisible hand, wealth of nations.
Yes.
Yeah, with the Adam Smith-esque capitalist society that we live in, the government has to coexist with it, and that's a really good thing because the government could invent something in the government lab, like the GPS, which is ugly as sin. Like no one wants to look. It's just like this thing. But then through maybe tech transfer or an OT, they lob it over to industry, and then it becomes commercialized, and then you got Garmin, and then you have like the little feet. You remember Garmin when they had the little feet that showed where your car was and the feet was like going down the road? That's our market at its best. The Air Force wouldn't do that. They wouldn't put feet on there.
Just a blinking dot.
Yeah. So that's a big purpose of other transactions is you're reaching out to non-traditional companies, but you're putting DoD dollars in something that could have a dual purpose. That's research. But then we go into prototype and production. So there's it's 10 USC 4022.
I remembered that one.
I did remember that one.
I remembered that one.
Oh, you remember? You really did?
Because I helped design that white paper that we were working on that one time.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I messed it up a couple times.
What'd you put?
42. 02 or something
Rookie
like
mistake.
That.
So the most used OT, kind of OT is prototype OTs and production OTs. That's only in the DoD. The Department of Defense has the most detailed procurement authority statute. It's long, and there's like different ones. There's 4021, which we just talked about, research. There's prototype and production. There's for experimental purposes. NASA's like one sentence, so broad. HHS has OT authority, but I think it's only applied to response to like emergencies, COVID. Like pandemic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they can't use it all the time. DoD can use it all the time. It just has to be novel. It has to be novel, like some kind of novel prototype for the prototype OT. And it's got to be given to, for the most part, what's called a non-traditional company.
Non-traditional
company. NTC, I think is what. An NTC.
How do you be a non-traditional company?
You don't have to be a small business. You can be a large business and non-traditional. That's a big misunderstanding.
What does non-traditional mean? Does it mean they just haven't worked with the government before?
Yeah, that's the idea. So the statutory intent of other transactions is they want to lower the barrier for these new entrants who just look at the FAR as a major obstacle That's
Yeah.
the whole reason why OTs were put in. So to be a non-traditional company, though, it started as these like new. You think of non-traditional, it's like these. Maybe that's what Congress had in mind, like these newbies who are living in their parents' garage, or working in
HP
their parents'
in the garage,
Yeah, like the true startups. However, the definition of non-traditionals widens the scope of that, and it could actually include very large businesses who've been around for a while, even in the government.
Yeah. Okay.
Who've been working with the government for a while. Yeah.
But they just have a new area that they're moving into, or
Well, so to be a non-traditional, you cannot have worked a contract that requires you to have something called CAS, cost accounting standards.
okay.
And cost accounting standards are required usually, or full CAS coverage too. So it's not just partial. That's required when you're doing like something called cost reimbursement contracts. We've talked about that before,
Yeah.
right? Like where you're tallying up the cost, you get profit on top of that. But that's like for big projects where the risk is a little bit more on the government because it's a little bit more of a dynamic environment. You're not sure what it's going to be. It's not commercial. So you're talking about like military development stuff. Mil spec stuff can be cost because you can't fix price that.
Yeah, because you're saying we want you to build this crazy thing.
Yeah.
We're not really sure how much it's going to cost.
Exactly. So it turns into a project. And then like, when you like contractors, if you renovate your kitchen or something, sometimes that's cost.
Yeah.
Like, can we do this? Can we do that? And they always go, it'll cost you.
So, yeah.
Well, fixed price, the risk is on the government because you just come up with that fixed price. But you don't have to abide by the cost accounting standards. So in other words, within the last year, you haven't had a CAS type contract.
Okay.
So if you're a company, if Google worked with the government, for a whole bunch of stuff, but they never did a cost contract. It was all commercial. They so if there's a company who's a super large company that's only done commercial contracts, they're non-traditional still.
Okay.
They may have been around for years.
Okay.
They're still not. Levi, one of the oldest American Brooks Brothers.
Brooks Brothers.
1818 was when they started. They're the oldest American company.
Really?
I think, or the oldest American. Yeah, I think so.
Clothing company.
Okay. They can be a non-traditional. They're a non-traditional company because they've never done. They're as traditional as America and apple pie, baseball and apple pie. Brooks Brothers. They are non-traditional.
All right, that makes sense.
According to the Department of Defense. I don't know. Maybe soldiers are going to fancy it up. We'll start wearing some Brooks Brothers uniforms, and then they could. They can use a CSO and an OT. A CSO to order it. It's a commercial innovation. We've never done it before.
Okay.
We've never had button-down collars in our uniforms. That's new. A commercial innovation, and then let's prototype it. You can do a prototype. It's getting crazy. Anyway, yeah.
No, I liked where you're going because I like the idea. So, okay, so the prototype is we like the idea.
Yeah.
Let's build one and see how it goes.
Yeah, so the prototype has to be novel, and it's I think it's a little bit different than a commercial innovation. The commercial innovation has that broad exception that the application has to be new. Mm-hmm. It's not so much for prototype. Prototype it really is pretty novel, pretty new. But here's the other thing that makes it broad. Prototype is still broad. Prototype is a novel technology or business process.
Okay.
A process. We've gotten an OT, an ASI.
Nice.
Because of the way we do videos and stuff. That's novel.
Yeah.
It's a new way of doing
So
education.
novel.
Yeah.
No one would ever think to do that.
Yeah, learning it the non-boring way.
Yeah.
So you meet those definitions, you have a prototype.
Okay.
If the prototype works and you compete the prototype, you can move on to that company with a full-on production OT.
Okay.
And sometimes production OTs are like ordering vehicles where, for example, DIU.
Okay.
DIU would do a production contract for drones. If the drone worked, if they passed all that, you set up kind of
They do
like
a prototype. for the drones.
Did I say
You
prototype?
said production.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they do a prototype OT for drones. They set up the perimeters and the specifications, the milestones for what a successful prototype would be. That's important. They need to, if you're going to do a prototype,
Define what success looks like.
define what success looks like.
Okay.
If they meet that, then the government then DIU can choose to move directly with that company into what's called a production other transaction.
Do they have to compete between the two? They can just say
Not if they compete at the prototype phase.
Oh, okay.
If they compete at the prototype phase, they can just, as a logical follow-on, move into production.
Okay.
And that can be like an ordering vehicle. So for the drones, for example, they just set up an ordering vehicle for drones. And what DIU is, because they're kind of like a joint agency, so they open up their drones to the whole DoD.
Okay.
So they go through the whole work of doing these prototypes. And if the prototype works, they throw it into a production and say, hey, DoD, order your new technology here. We've got this production.
How long does that production OT last?
So in the FAR, your contracts can last 5 years. That's it.
Okay.
I think there's some exceptions in the DFARS for lasting up to 10 years for some IT, but I think that you can make it last longer. With technology, though, it may not make sense.
Yeah.
So you can do stuff like put in your OTs like tech kind of refresh clauses and to keep up, but you can only do that so much with a fixed price right before the company's like, we can't predict this. Like, don't hold us to updating our technology. We can't give you the latest and greatest at the price that we agreed to 7 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
So yeah, they're not very long because they probably just don't make sense to make them that long. But I think they have the freedom to do. I don't think there's a statute, I may be wrong, that kind of puts a limit on the contracts.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing with OT, competition. So one of the things that's not required when you use OT, one of the many things is you don't have to follow SECA, Competition and Contracting Act.
Oh, okay.
So SECA, even Part 13 makes you do a whole bunch of stuff. But the standard is, actually the standard is this in Part 13 as well, is you need to compete to the maximum extent practicable. That's the term. That does not mean you need to get at least 3 people. That does not mean the rule of 2 applies for small business. That does not mean that you have to put it out for 30 days. You just have to try. That's it. Just try. That's it. OT is give it a good college try.
For competition.
Yeah. Maximum extent practicable, it means college try.
Okay. So the DoD puts out a CSO. They get something back that they like.
Yep.
They can award that an OT prototype contract.
Yeah. So the OT is not the solicitation. So they don't have to do a CSO necessarily.
No.
But if they choose to use a CSO, then yeah, from the CSO, like you said, they see some stuff they like. Maybe they go through the phase process of a CSO, however they set the CSO up. Once they select and negotiate with the companies, they can move that into a prototype OT.
Okay.
They can
so
move
competition can happen at many points along the process, from when they're first trying to figure out what they want to the point that they're giving actual.
Yeah, it's usually one competitive process, right? But you can set the CSO up to include a lot of different phases.
Okay.
But you just have to spell it out in your CSO. So it is still one CSO, but you can say, for the first phase, just send me this.
Okay.
And then if you move on to the next round, give me a little bit more information. So I don't know if we mentioned this in the CSO video. We can mention it here. But usually, because you're outside the FAR, in the FAR, you have to do all these requirements for a solicitation. The beauty of working outside the FAR is with your solicitation, like with a CSO, for example, or if you're using another solicitation for OT that you can just make up, you can make up a solicitation type, call it the fun RFP.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. So you can just throw a couple paragraphs on, no terms and conditions. And the beauty of that is you're requiring less from companies at the very beginning. So if they weren't going to make it anyway, the burden of them just putting something together is a lot less.
I got it.
Maybe they just put a page together, what they do.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that page, they move on. And then as they start moving closer and closer to the chance of actually getting an award, maybe more is required from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I feel a lot smarter now.
All right.